On the day she buried her father, her billionaire husband handed her divorce papers while she was 7 months pregnant. Years later, her revenge became his greatest nightmare. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another emotional story that touches the heart. Cold wind bit through Emma Carter's thin black coat as the church bells tolled in slow, aching rhythm. Each chime seemed to echo the same truth she'd tried to outrun all week. Her father was gone. People spoke softly around her, dressed in muted grays and blacks, murmuring condolences she could barely hear. The sky over Boston hung low and gray, the kind of heavy silence that feels like it's pressing on your chest. She stood near the open grave, one hand resting on her swollen belly. 7 months along, her father had always said he wanted to hold his granddaughter before he went. Now he never would. Her husband, Liam Weston, was nowhere in sight. The billionaire real estate tycoon had promised to come, had even sent flowers so grand they looked more like a corporate event than a funeral. But as the pastor's voice carried over the crowd, Emma stood alone, holding herself against the wind. Her mother had died when she was 12. Her father had been her anchor, her reason. Losing him felt like losing the world twice. Then she heard it, the hum of a black Rolls-Royce pulling up behind the church. The whispers started immediately. He's here. Finally. Heads turned. Liam Weston, in his tailored black suit, stepped out, flanked by two bodyguards. He looked every bit the picture of control, polished, powerful, and distant. Emma's breath caught. For a fleeting second, she felt relief. Maybe he'd come to comfort her. Maybe, just for today, he'd remember he was her husband before he was a businessman. But when their eyes met, she saw nothing of warmth. His jaw was tight, his expression cold. He walked toward her, not to offer his hand, but to hand her a white envelope. Confused, Emma frowned. Liam, what's this? He didn't blink. You should read it. She opened it with trembling fingers, her heart thudding as her eyes darted across the printed words. Her knees went weak, her lips parted, but no sound came out. It was a petition for divorce. The murmurs around them grew louder. Her best friend, Rachel, gasped from behind. Liam, what the hell is this? At her father's funeral? Emma looked up at him, tears threatening to spill. You can't be serious. Not here. Not now. Liam's tone was ice. I don't want to make a scene. Emma, just sign the papers when you're ready. My lawyer will handle everything. Her hands shook. You're divorcing me. Now, I'm carrying your child. His expression didn't waver. You're carrying a child. Whether it's mine, I'm not sure anymore. The words sliced through her like knives. Her voice cracked. What are you saying? You think I'd cheat on you? He glanced at the crowd watching them. Business associates, reporters, extended family. Let's not do this here. But she stepped closer, her grief morphing into fury. You think this is better? Handing me divorce papers at my father's grave? His silence was worse than an answer. He turned, about to leave. Her body trembled, rage mixing with heartbreak. You loved me once, Liam. How could you believe I'd betray you? For the briefest second, guilt flickered in his eyes. But then his mother's voice, sharp and controlling, echoed from behind the car. Come, Liam, this family has caused enough embarrassment. Emma turned toward the voice. Mrs. Weston stood there, her pearl necklace glinting even in the dull light, eyes cold as stone. She had never hidden her dislike for Emma, calling her a gold digger who'd trapped her son with a pregnancy. Liam said nothing. He just nodded slightly and walked back to the car. Emma's tears finally broke free. She watched the man she loved leave. On the same day, she buried her father. Her world collapsed in slow motion, grief folding into grief, pain into disbelief. Rachel rushed to her side. "Emma, breathe! Please, breathe!" But Emma's breath came shallow, her chest tightening. She felt lightheaded. Then a sharp pain rippled across her belly. The baby kicked violently. Her knees buckled. "Emma!" Rachel shouted, catching her as she fell. The crowd swarmed around them, chaos breaking through the silence of the cemetery, dot through blurred vision. Emma saw the Rolls-Royce disappear down the hill. She whispered to herself, voice trembling but fierce, "You took everything from me, Liam. But one day, you'll wish you hadn't." Then everything went dark. When Emma woke hours later, she was in a hospital room. The sterile white ceiling stared down at her like judgment. Rachel sat beside her, holding her hand. "The baby's okay," Rachel said softly. "You fainted from shock." Emma's palm brushed over her stomach protectively. Relief flooded through her, followed quickly by anger. She stared out the window at the gray Boston skyline, her reflection pale and hollow-eyed in the glass. "Rachel," she said quietly, "I lost my father today. I lost my husband. But I won't lose myself." Rachel hesitated. "Emma, what are you going to do?" She turned back, her eyes no longer soft, but burning. "I'm going to survive. For my baby. For me." Outside, the rain began to fall, slow, deliberate drops streaking the window like tears. But inside that hospital room, something in Emma Carter hardened. Her heart broke, but her will was reborn. If you were in Emma's place, grieving, betrayed, and pregnant, would you have confronted Liam that day, or walked away in silence? Tell us what you'd do in the comments. Rain fell in endless sheets over Boston that week, and every drop felt like the world mourning with her. The funeral was over. The guests were gone. Her father's home, the house she'd grown up in, was quiet now. To quiet. Emma sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the divorce papers on the nightstand. Her hands still trembled whenever she looked at them. The black ink seemed to mock her with every word: irreconcilable differences, infidelity, mutual consent. Lies. All of it lies. She hadn't cheated. She'd been faithful, loyal to a man who had slowly drifted into his empire and out of her heart. Her phone buzzed beside her. Rachel again. "Em, please eat something. You haven't had more than a glass of water in 2 days." Emma swallowed hard. "I can't. Every time I try, I feel sick. Then come stay with me. Don't isolate yourself like this." "I'll be fine," Emma whispered, though her voice cracked. "I just need time." But time didn't heal. It stretched the pain thinner until it touched everything. The doorbell rang. She expected Rachel, but when she opened the door, she froze. It was Liam's lawyer, a tall man in a gray suit, his eyes downcast. "Mrs. Weston, Miss Carter," she cut in coldly. "Apparently, I'm no longer Mrs. Weston." He hesitated, uncomfortable. "Miss Carter, Mr. Weston asked me to retrieve the house keys. The property is under his name." For a second, she couldn't process the words. "You mean I have to leave?" He nodded. He's transferring some funds to your account as part of the settlement, but he'd like the residence vacated within 72 hours. Emma blinked, numb. He's throwing me out while I'm 7 months pregnant? The lawyer's eyes softened, but his tone stayed formal. I'm just doing my job, ma'am. She almost laughed, a brittle, broken sound. Yeah, I bet you are. When the door closed, Emma stood there in silence. Then she turned toward the framed photo on the mantel, her wedding picture. Liam's arm around her, his smile bright, his promise eternal. She picked up the frame and stared at it, her reflection fractured in the glass. You don't get to destroy me, she whispered. Then she hurled it against the wall. The glass shattered, scattering like the pieces of her old life. By nightfall, she packed what little she could, clothes, documents. The few mementos of her father that still felt like warmth in her palms. Everything else she left behind. The next morning, she stood outside the mansion gates, a small suitcase by her feet, the wind whipping her hair. For the first time in years, she had nowhere to go. Rachel pulled up in her old Toyota, eyes red from crying. You should have called me. You shouldn't have to do this alone. Emma smiled faintly. I'm not alone. I've got her. She rested her hand on her belly. Rachel nodded, but tears welled in her eyes. We'll figure this out. You'll stay with me for now, okay? Weeks passed. Emma moved into Rachel's tiny apartment above a bookstore in downtown Boston. It wasn't much, but it was warm and quiet. She started working there too, sorting books, managing customers. It was the kind of work that paid little but filled the hours. Each day she grew a little stronger, her belly rounder, her resolve harder. Some nights, though, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. She missed Liam, not the man he became, but the one he used to be, the man who made her laugh, who once danced with her barefoot in the kitchen at midnight. She wondered if he ever thought of her, if he cared that she was struggling to buy prenatal vitamins, if he cared that she still wore the ring he'd given her, though she'd stopped believing in what it stood for. But one cold January morning, Emma's life changed again. A customer walked into the bookstore, a well-dressed man with kind eyes and a camera slung over his shoulder. He bought a rare novel and stayed to chat. His name was Daniel Shaw, a travel journalist. He was everything Liam wasn't anymore. Grounded, thoughtful, quietly confident. They began to talk more. About books, about grief, about life. Daniel didn't treat her like a broken thing. He made her laugh, reminded her she still had light left in her. You ever think of writing your story? He asked one evening as they shelved books together. My story? Emma smiled sadly. It's not a happy one. Doesn't have to be. Daniel said softly. Sometimes the painful ones heal others. For the first time in months, Emma felt seen. One night, while Rachel was asleep, Emma sat by the window, the city lights flickering below. She took out the divorce papers again. Her signature sat there in cold ink. Final dot, she whispered to her unborn daughter. He took everything from us. But one day, baby girl, we'll take it all back. With grace, not hatred. With strength. She pressed her hand to her belly and smiled faintly. That's how we'll win. 3 months later, in the early morning hours of April, Emma gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, Leela Grace Carter. The moment she held her daughter, something inside her shifted. The pain didn't disappear, but it found purpose. Rachel cried. She's perfect, Em. Look at her. Emma gazed at Leela, tears streaming down her face. You're my whole world now, she whispered. Liam never came. Not a call, not a letter, not even a name on the birth certificate. That day, Emma stopped waiting for him. She promised her daughter something better, a life built on her own strength. But what she didn't know was that fate was already working in her favor. Because in the months to come, she'd cross paths with someone who would change everything and help her rise far beyond anything Liam Weston could imagine. Her revenge wouldn't be with anger, it would be with success. And when she finally faced him again, he'd be the one begging for forgiveness. The early years were not easy. Emma often woke before dawn to feed little Leela, then slipped quietly into the bookstore downstairs to work before the city stirred. The apartment smelled of old paper and coffee, Rachel's coffee, strong enough to wake the dead. Each day was a fight between exhaustion and determination. But every time she looked at her daughter's tiny face, Emma found the strength to keep going. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was building. Money was still tight, though. Rachel covered rent when she could, but Emma hated relying on her friend's kindness. One night, while feeding Leela, she whispered, "We need more, baby. Something better. Something that's ours." She began freelancing online, writing small business blogs and editing content late into the night. Sleep became a luxury, but within a few months, she earned enough to open a small bank account, one that was hers alone. For the first time since Liam left, she felt free. 3 years later, Boston's skyline glowed with winter lights. Inside a small co-working office near the waterfront, a sign read, "Carter & Co. Branding Solutions." Emma Carter, the same woman who once stood crying in the rain outside her husband's mansion, was now a sought-after brand strategist. Her first major client had been Daniel, the travel journalist who'd encouraged her to write again. He'd recommended her to others, and word of mouth spread quickly. Now, she managed campaigns for local startups and mid-sized companies, earning more than she'd ever imagined possible. But she never forgot where she started. Her daughter, Leela, now a bright, curly-haired 4-year-old, played quietly in the corner of the office while Emma finished a client call. "Yes, Mr. Anders," Emma said, her tone polished and confident. "The new brand concept aligns perfectly with your audience. We'll send over the mock-ups by Thursday." When she hung up, Leela clapped. "Mommy's boss!" Emma laughed, scooping her daughter into her arms. "Yes, baby, Mommy's the boss." It still amazed her sometimes how far she'd come, how strong she'd become. She didn't need Liam. She didn't need his money, his name, or his pity. But sometimes, at night, when the office lights dimmed and Leela slept on the couch, Emma's mind wandered. Where was he now? Did he ever think of her? Did he even know he had a daughter? She'd Googled him once. Months ago, saw photos of him at gala events, arm in arm with a model. It hadn't hurt the way she thought it would. It had just confirmed what she already knew. Liam Weston had moved on. But what he didn't know was that so had she. One evening, while Emma was closing her laptop, Rachel burst into the office, excitement written all over her face. "Em, you have to see this." She held up a glossy magazine. On the cover was a bold headline, "Weston Enterprises to host National Business Summit in Boston." Emma's stomach tightened. "Liam's company?" Rachel nodded. "They're inviting small business owners for partnership opportunities. And guess whose company got a nomination from the city's innovation program? Emma blinked. You're joking. Rachel grinned. Carter & Co. is on the short list. Emma froze, her pulse quickening. After all these years, she'd built something good, something real, now it could bring her face to face with the man who'd broken her. Rachel's eyes softened. You don't have to go, Em. Emma inhaled slowly, looking down at her hands. No, I think I do. 2 weeks later, the Weston Business Summit filled the grand ballroom of a luxury Boston hotel. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and waiters in tuxedos glided between tables. The air buzzed with wealth and ambition. Emma entered in a sleek navy dress, her confidence quiet but undeniable. She was no longer the trembling woman who'd begged for love. She was power in heels. As she moved through the crowd, she caught glimpses of old business rivals whispering her name. Her work had made waves. People noticed her now. And then she saw him. Liam Weston stood near the stage, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, his silver watch gleaming under the light. He looked older, harder, but still impossibly familiar. Her breath caught for a second. She hadn't expected the rush of old memories, the laughter, the betrayal, the pain, but she steadied herself. Liam's gaze drifted across the room and landed on her. For a long, charged moment, their eyes met. His expression faltered. Recognition, then confusion, then something unreadable flickered across his face. Emma smiled politely, the kind of professional smile that hides history. Then she turned away. The event continued, filled with speeches and networking. But halfway through, one of the coordinators announced, "Up next, a presentation by Carter & Co., one of Boston's fastest-growing branding agencies." Liam's head snapped toward the stage just as Emma walked up. He froze. Her name was on the big screen behind her. Emma Carter, founder and CEO. She began her presentation smoothly, confident and poised. Every slide was polished, every word sharp. The audience was captivated. Even Liam couldn't look away. When she finished, applause erupted across the ballroom. She smiled, nodded, and stepped off the stage. As she passed Liam, he said quietly, "Emma, we need to talk." She turned, eyes cool. "We really don't." He looked stunned. The woman in front of him wasn't the fragile wife he'd abandoned. She was someone else entirely, someone powerful. "Please," he said softly. "Just 5 minutes." She hesitated, then nodded once. 5 minutes. Nothing more. They met later that night on the balcony overlooking the Boston skyline. The air was crisp, the city lights stretching endlessly below. Liam looked at her, regret heavy in his voice. "You look incredible. You've built all this on your own?" Emma smiled faintly. "You thought I couldn't." He shook his head slowly. "I don't even know how to start apologizing." "You don't need to," she said evenly. "You made your choices." "So did I?" He searched her face. "Was I wrong about the baby?" Emma's eyes hardened. "Yes, Liam, you were." He swallowed, his throat tight. "Then I have a daughter." Emma stepped back. "She doesn't need your guilt or your money. She has me." "That's enough." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Emma turned, her voice steady but sharp. "You divorced me at my father's funeral. That was the day I buried my past. Don't ask me to dig it up again." She walked away, heels clicking against the marble floor, each step echoing like victory. The night after the summit, Liam Weston couldn't sleep. For the first time in years, his mind wasn't filled with numbers, deals, or acquisitions. It was filled with her, the woman he had once loved and destroyed. Emma Carter. She wasn't just doing well, she was thriving. Her presentation had outshone every major company at the event. The investors, who once begged for his attention, were now whispering her name. He poured himself a glass of whiskey and stared at the Boston skyline from his penthouse window. "What have I done?" he muttered under his breath. His assistant, Michael, had warned him that Weston Enterprises was losing credibility, that people were calling it outdated. Soulless. But seeing Emma on that stage made Liam realize why. Somewhere along the line, he had lost his humanity and the woman who carried it. Meanwhile, Emma's company was booming. After the summit, her inbox flooded with new clients, offers, and partnership proposals. She barely had time to breathe, and she loved it. Each morning, she'd drop Leela off at preschool before heading to her new downtown office, coffee in hand, confidence in stride. The old pain was still there, but now it fueled her. Rachel teased her constantly. "You realize you've basically become the female version of Liam Weston, right?" Emma laughed. "If that's true, I'm doing it with better ethics and cuter shoes." But deep down, she knew the difference wasn't just in style. It was in heart. She treated her employees like family, celebrated their wins, and made sure her company's success didn't come at the cost of anyone's dignity. Everything Liam's empire lacked, hers had in abundance. 2 months later, she received an unexpected email. Subject: proposal for strategic collaboration. Weston Enterprise froze. Her pulse quickened as she reread it twice. Liam was requesting a business partnership. Her company would handle the rebranding of Weston Enterprises' struggling image. Rachel nearly dropped her coffee when she saw it. Oh no. He wants to work with you. This is insane. Tell him to shove it. Emma looked thoughtful. Or maybe, she said quietly, "This is exactly what I've been waiting for." Rachel blinked. "You're going to say yes?" Emma smiled faintly. "Yes, but not for him, for me." The next week, Emma walked into Weston Enterprises for the first time since her divorce. It was surreal. The sleek glass building, the marble floors, the familiar scent of his cologne that lingered faintly in the air. She was greeted by executives and peer managers, all polite, but clearly uneasy. After all, everyone knew who she was. The ex-wife who'd been publicly humiliated, now standing in front of them as their company's potential savior. When Liam walked into the conference room, silence fell. He looked tired. The hard edges in his face were sharper, but his eyes, they looked human again. "Emma," he said softly, extending his hand. She hesitated, then shook it. "Mr. Weston," he smiled faintly. "Still formal, huh?" "Professional," she corrected. "That's what this is." The meeting went smoothly, almost too smoothly. Emma presented a rebranding plan that emphasized authenticity, compassion, and modern transparency, everything Liam's company had lost over the years. Afterward, as the team dispersed, he lingered. "You really are remarkable," he said quietly. She glanced at him. "No, Liam, I just became what you said I couldn't." He flinched. "You have every right to hate me. Emma's voice was calm but sharp. "I don't hate you. Hate is heavy. I put it down a long time ago." He looked down, guilt shadowing his face. "I've thought about that day, your father's funeral, every night since. I was cruel. I let my pride and my mother's poison control me, and I can never take that back." Emma sighed, her tone weary. "You're right. You can't." He nodded slowly. "But maybe I can try to make things right. I'd like to meet my daughter, Emma." She froze, heart thudding. "She's not a name on your guilt list, Liam. She's a person with feelings, and she's mine to protect." "I understand," he said softly. "I'm not asking to take her from you. I just want to see her once." Emma hesitated, conflict flashing across her face. "I'll think about it." Then she picked up her folder and walked out. That night, back at home, Emma sat beside Lila's bed, watching her daughter sleep, her little chest rising and falling peacefully. Rachel leaned against the doorway. "You're thinking about letting him see her, aren't you?" Emma nodded slowly. "Part of me wants to protect her. The other part wants her to see the truth for herself someday. Who he really is, good or bad." Rachel sighed. "You've got more grace than I ever would." Emma smiled faintly. "Grace isn't weakness, Ratch. It's revenge that doesn't destroy you." Days turned into weeks. Emma and Liam continued working together on the project. Slowly, their meetings grew less formal, the conversations less cold. She noticed small changes in him, the way he listened now, the way he admitted mistakes, even the way he smiled sometimes, unsure and human. One afternoon, during a photo shoot for the Rembrandt campaign, he quietly said, "You've made this company better. Emma, you've made me better." She didn't respond, but deep down, she felt something unexpected, a soft ache where bitterness used to live. Was it forgiveness? Or just exhaustion from holding the pain for too long? When the rebranding finally launched, it was a massive success. Weston Enterprises' public image transformed overnight. Investors returned, the media praised the campaign, and the company's stock soared. But this time, the credit didn't go to Liam. It went to her, Emma Carter, the woman he had once discarded. Her name was everywhere, on the news, in magazines, in business journals. The world finally saw her for who she was, not a broken ex-wife, but a visionary. That night, Liam called her. His voice was quiet, almost trembling. "Emma, thank you for everything." She hesitated. "You're welcome. I didn't do it for you, Liam. I did it for me, and for the little girl who deserved a mother she could be proud of." He paused. "Can I meet her?" After a long silence, Emma finally said, "Tomorrow, 5 p.m. at the park near the river." Liam exhaled shakily. "Thank you." She hung up, her hands trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of the moment. Tomorrow, her past and her present would collide, and for the first time, she wasn't the one who would be nervous.
The next afternoon, Boston's Charles River Park shimmered under soft sunlight. It was the kind of day that almost made the city look gentle, children laughing by the swings, joggers passing by with headphones in, and the crisp scent of spring carried by the breeze. Emma sat on a wooden bench, watching her daughter, Lila, chase pigeons across the grass. She wore a pink dress and white sneakers, her curls bouncing as she giggled. For a moment, it was easy to forget the past, until she heard footsteps behind her. Liam Weston stood there, hands in his coat pockets, looking nothing like the powerful billionaire who once crushed her world. He looked nervous, uncertain, a man stripped of his armor. Emma didn't rise. "You're early," she said, without looking up. "I didn't sleep much," he admitted. His voice was low, rougher than she remembered. "I didn't want to be late." She nodded toward the playground. "That's her." He followed her gaze. The little girl's laughter froze him in place. For a second, he didn't breathe. His chest tightened painfully. She looks just like you," he whispered. Emma turned her head slightly, her tone even. "She has your eyes." Liam swallowed hard. Does she know who I am?" "Not yet," Emma said softly. "She just knows she's meeting a friend." Liam nodded slowly, his throat dry. "May I—" "Go ahead," she said, though her fingers tightened around the edge of the bench. He walked toward the playground, his polished shoes crunching softly on the gravel. As he approached, Lila stopped chasing the pigeons and stared up at him curiously, her big brown eyes innocent, searching. "Hi there," he said gently, kneeling down to her height. "You must be Lila." She smiled shyly. "Mommy said you're her friend." He nodded. "That's right. I used to know your mommy a long time ago." She tilted her head. "Do you like stories?" He blinked. "Stories?" "Uh-huh," she said proudly. "Mommy reads to me every night before bed." Liam smiled, something warm flickering across his face. "Then we already have something in common. I love stories too." She giggled. "Can you tell me one?" And so on the grass beneath the cherry trees, the billionaire who once lived for boardrooms and profit margins found himself telling a simple fairy tale about a brave girl and a foolish king who forgot what really mattered until it was almost too late. Emma watched from the bench, her chest tight. There was something hauntingly poetic about the sight. The man who had broken her heart, now laughing softly with the child he'd never met. Part of her wanted to hate him again, but another part, a quieter part, saw a man trying, really trying, to face what he'd lost. After a while, Lila ran off to play again, and Liam walked back to Emma, sitting beside her on the bench. The silence between them was heavy, but not hostile. "She's perfect," he said finally, his voice thick with emotion. "You did an amazing job, Emma." Emma looked straight ahead. "I had to." He nodded slowly, his hands clasped tightly together. "I know nothing I say can fix the past, but seeing you like this, it's made me realize how empty my life's been." She glanced at him, her voice quiet but sharp. "You chose that emptiness, Liam. I didn't." His head dropped. "I know. I was weak. My mother kept feeding me lies, and I believed them because it was easier than admitting I was scared." "Scared of what?" she asked. "Of losing control," he said honestly. "Of being human in a world where weakness costs millions. You were the only person who ever made me feel something real, and that terrified me." She turned to him fully now. "So you instead destroyed it. You destroyed us." He didn't deny it. "I did. And every day since I've hated myself for it." He looked at her with tears gathering in his eyes, the kind of tears that come from years of silence breaking all at once. "I watched you today with her. You're everything I should have been. Strong, kind, present. I don't deserve to even sit here." Emma's expression softened, but her voice stayed firm. "You don't get to disappear for 5 years and then rewrite the story, Liam. You can't undo what you did." "I know," he said quietly. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want to be better, even if it's from a distance." She studied him for a long moment. "Why now?" He exhaled. "Because when I saw you at that summit, I realized what I'd thrown away. You built everything I once dreamed of, not with money, but with integrity. And I thought maybe I could try to earn back some of that respect." Emma turned her gaze back to Lila. "She deserves to know who her father is someday, but you'll have to prove you're worthy of that title first." He nodded, his eyes glistening. "I'll do anything. Whatever you need me to do." She met his gaze again, steady and unflinching. "Then start by showing up, consistently, quietly, not as a billionaire trying to fix things with money, but as a man who's willing to stay." He swallowed hard. "I have your word." For the first time in years, she believed him. Not because he said it, but because for once, he meant it. As the sun dipped lower over the Charles River, Lila came running back holding 2 ice cream cones dripping down her fingers. "Mommy, I got one for your friend too." Liam chuckled, accepting the cone awkwardly. "Thank you, sweetheart." Emma smiled faintly, watching them. There was a peace she hadn't felt in years, fragile, new, but real. As they sat together, the 3 of them, Emma realized something profound. Revenge wasn't about making him suffer. It was about making herself whole again, and proving that she didn't need his destruction to define her strength. Still, life had one more twist left for both of them, too. Because fate wasn't done teaching Liam Weston what love, loss, and redemption truly meant.
The weeks that followed were unlike anything Emma Carter expected. True to his word, Liam began showing up, quietly, consistently, without fanfare or money. Every Saturday morning, he met Emma and Lila at the park. No bodyguards, no flashy cars, just a man trying to learn how to be a father. He read storybooks, learned how to braid Lila's curls, badly, and even showed up at her preschool recital, standing in the back, clapping with a pride that made Emma's chest tighten. At first, she watched from a distance, skeptical. She waited for him to break his pattern, for the cold, distant Liam of the past to reappear. But he didn't. Each week, he surprised her. He brought Lila's favorite muffins from the cafe near her school. He asked about Emma's company, not as a businessman, but as someone genuinely curious. Slowly, the edges between resentment and forgiveness began to blur. One evening, months later, Emma got a call from Rachel, who was almost out of breath from excitement. "Turn on the TV, Channel 5, right now." Emma frowned but obeyed. The local evening news flashed to a breaking story. Liam Weston had just announced a major initiative through Weston Enterprises, a $50 million fund to support single mothers in business. The reporter said his inspiration came from a woman who showed him that strength and compassion could rebuild what pride destroyed. Emma stood frozen, staring at the screen as tears welled in her eyes. He hadn't named her. He didn't have to. She knew. A few days later, Liam appeared at her office unannounced. He wasn't in a suit, just jeans and a button-up, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. "I didn't mean to catch you off guard," he said gently. I wanted you to hear it from me." She gestured for him to sit. "I saw it, the foundation." He nodded. "It was time to give back, the right way. I kept thinking about how many women go through what you did, and I realized helping them is the only way I'll ever earn a piece of peace." She smiled faintly. "You don't need to earn forgiveness, Liam. You just need to keep being the man you're trying to be." He looked at her, really looked at her, the way he used to before the world hardened him. "You make it sound easy," she said softly. "It's not, but it's worth it." Later that evening, they took Leela for ice cream. The little girl held both their hands as they walked along the riverside, chattering about school and her favorite cartoons. When she ran ahead to feed ducks by the water, Emma and Liam stood side by side, watching her. "She's amazing," Liam murmured. Emma nodded, her voice full of pride, quiet. "She saved me." He turned toward her. "You saved me." Their eyes met, the wind carrying the faint scent of the river between them. For a long, silent moment, neither spoke, and they didn't need to. There wasn't a spark of old romance there, not yet, but there was something deeper: respect, understanding, closure. Finally, Liam said, "I'll never stop being sorry, Emma, but thank you for letting me try." She smiled gently, "And thank you for finally seeing what was in front of you all along." 2 years later, Carter & Co. had grown into one of Boston's top consulting firms. The Weston Foundation had helped over 200 women start new businesses. Leela was 6 now, bright, funny, endlessly curious. At a charity gala that summer, Emma took the stage to accept an award for Entrepreneur of the Year. The crowd erupted in applause, and when she glanced toward the audience, she saw Liam standing there, not as her ex-husband, but as her friend and supporter. When she spoke into the microphone, her voice trembled with emotion. "Years ago, I thought my life ended when I lost everything. But sometimes losing everything is how you find your strength. If there's anyone out there watching this who's been broken, abandoned, or underestimated, let me tell you, your story isn't over. You're just turning the page." The crowd stood and applauded, some wiping tears. Among them, Liam smiled, not with regret this time, but with pride. That night, Emma walked outside, away from the flashing cameras and bright lights. She stood by the river where it had all begun, the same place she had once cried, pregnant and alone. Now she wasn't alone anymore. She had built a life, a legacy, and a family, not the one she expected, but the one she needed. Liam approached quietly, holding out a small box. "What's this?" she asked. He smiled softly. "A necklace, for Leela, to remind her that she comes from strength. I had it made with your company's logo engraved inside." She opened it, eyes glistening. "It's beautiful." "I figured it was about time I learned to give without expecting anything in return." She met his gaze, calm, steady, kind. "You finally did, Liam. You finally learned." They stood in silence for a moment as the city lights flickered on the water. Then she smiled, a real smile, one free from pain. "We're not who we used to be," she said softly. "No, we're better." As the river flowed quietly beside them, it carried away the last remnants of bitterness, leaving behind only peace, the kind that comes when wounds finally heal. And for Emma Carter, that was revenge enough. After everything Emma went through, do you think she made the right choice by forgiving Liam, or would you have shut him out forever? Comment your thoughts below. I'd love to hear what you think.